Chosen one, your presence here proves the alignment has already begun. Something unseen has aligned to bring you here, a moment written into your timeline long before you even knew to look. The silence you carried, the pauses that others mocked, were never empty. They were the soil where God planted your authority, and now the roots are breaking the ground. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. They never wanted you to know this truth, but what you thought was stillness was the sharpening of a sword. Today we uncover why they misread your silence, and why the very thing they laughed at is now the weapon undoing their schemes. Stay until the end, chosen one, because what is about to be revealed is the moment your silence rises as fire. Number 1. The silence they mocked. They thought your silence was defeat, proof that you had no fight left. They ridiculed your restraint, saying that if you were truly chosen, you would have shouted back, defended yourself, or proved them wrong in front of crowds. But silence in the hands of a chosen one is never weakness. It is the sacred language of strategy. Ecclesiastes 3 verse 7 tells us there is a time to keep silence, and a time to speak, and your silence was God's signal that it was not yet the appointed time. Every insult they threw at you fell into that silence, where it lost its power. What they mocked became the very thing that sealed your words for the day of unveiling. Comment, I seal this word in light, if you know what it means to be underestimated for your silence. And stay with me, because the silence they misread is about to transform into a sword they cannot endure. The dream often returns in fragments. A field without sound, your footsteps swallowed by the earth, and voices far away calling you weak for not shouting back. In that dream, your mouth refuses to move, yet the silence is heavy with presence, like the air before a storm. What you didn't realize then is that silence itself was speaking on your behalf, uttering words the world could not hear but heaven understood perfectly. This is the truth they never wanted you to uncover, that your restraint was not abandonment but alignment. When you thought you had lost your voice, God was tuning it to a frequency beyond human ears. Every pause was a seed, pressed into the soil of time, waiting for its appointed season to bloom. And now, chosen one, you are beginning to feel that those unspoken years were not wasted, they were holy. You remember the sting of being misunderstood, don't you? The long hours when people mocked your quiet, mistaking it for weakness because they could not comprehend its depth. They asked why you didn't fight back, why you let their accusations fall unanswered, as if silence was proof of defeat. But deep inside, you felt that arguing would have drained you of something precious, something not meant for them. Instead of speaking, you carried the ache of being unseen, of being measured by their standards of noise and conflict. You wondered if you were broken for preferring stillness to reaction, for choosing distance instead of confrontation. Yet that quiet longing for meaning was never emptiness. It was a sign that you were already being set apart. Think of it now with new eyes. Was it really weakness, or was it architecture unseen? Every insult that fell on you became a stone in the foundation of your endurance. Every closed door was not random rejection but careful placement, building a corridor only you were meant to walk through. Scripture whispers this truth in Ecclesiastes 3 verse 7. There is indeed a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Your silence was not the absence of courage, it was the presence of divine timing, a shield against premature exposure. Heaven knew that if you had spoken too soon, your words would have been stolen, twisted, or wasted. What they misread as surrender was actually your preservation, the sealing of a prophecy not yet ready to be unveiled. The signs of this were subtle, but they were always there. Do you remember the strange chills that came when you held your tongue, as if the spirit brushed past to confirm your choice? Or the dreams where your mouth stayed closed, yet others trembled before you as though something unspoken was roaring through your silence? Perhaps you felt the weight in your chest after arguments you didn't enter, a pressure that told you withholding was safer than wasting words. Even the moments of déjà vu carried this message, that you were walking a script already written, where silence itself was part of the design. You may have dismissed these as coincidences, yet now they return to your mind with clarity. What seemed like hesitation was sacred discernment, whispering that stillness carries its own language. And now, in hindsight, you see that silence was always your teacher. It is time to affirm this. You were not imagining it. The heaviness you felt was real, and so was the quiet strength that rose inside you in moments of restraint. Your intuition was guiding you into a deeper trust, telling you that not every truth must be spoken immediately to prove its reality. Like an arrow waiting in the bow, your words were meant to rest until the target appeared. The world values noise, but you were never called to blend into its shouting chorus. You were called to hold a sound that, when released, would split shadows wide open. In the silence they mocked, God was aligning your spirit with precision. Awareness is deepening now, chosen one. You are beginning to remember that silence was never about becoming something new, but about recovering what was already buried inside. Beneath the surface of your restraint lived a name, a calling, an identity that needed time to ripen. The pauses were pruning, cutting away distractions so your roots could reach deeper into unseen soil. Your quiet was a womb of preparation, the sacred cave where memory of who you are could awaken. In that hidden place, your archetypal self, the seer, the warrior, the breaker of chains, was being stirred. The silence you carried was not an end but a key, opening doors no one else could see. Now comes the first activation, gentle but undeniable. The very sensitivity they mocked is now revealing itself as your highest discernment. The boundaries that seemed like weakness are sharpening into unshakable authority. The inner voice you doubted is rising with clarity, showing you patterns they tried to hide. What you once called timidity is actually holy defiance, the refusal to waste your soul on unworthy battles. You begin to feel a fierce joy in knowing that the silence preserved what noise would have destroyed. Every withheld word is now power in your hands, and every quiet night becomes proof of your survival. And slowly, step by step, you start to see that their laughter was never the end. It was the signal that you were already rising. Chosen one, this is why you arrived here today. Your silence was never weakness, never defeat. It was a crown forming in secret. The very restraint they ridiculed has become the testimony of your strength, the strategy of your destiny. You were mocked because they could not decode what heaven was writing in you. Now, as you stand at this threshold, you can feel the shift. Silence is no longer a cage, it is a weapon. Comment, I carry the silence as crown, if you know what it means to be underestimated, and if your spirit recognizes this word as your own. For chosen one, the silence they misread is about to transform into a sword they cannot endure. And this is only the beginning of what your stillness has been hiding. What we do here every day is possible because of the few who choose to be keepers of this light. I thank them now, one by one, in the silence of my heart. If you want to be part of this circle and receive what cannot be spoken in public, join. The portal is below. Number 2, the hidden sword. In the silence, heaven was not ignoring you. It was forging you. Every withheld response, every moment you chose stillness over retaliation, became a hammer striking steel in the unseen. Isaiah 42 verse 2 prophesies of the servant who shall not cry, nor lift up, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. Yet his silence changes nations. What they mistook for retreat was the furnace of transformation, shaping a hidden sword in your spirit. Now the edge is ready, and one word spoken from your silence carries more weight than all their noise combined. Comment, I walk crowned by eternal flame, if you feel that hidden fire in your chest, because chosen one, your silence is about to cut through every illusion they built against you. And this sword, when lifted, will not miss its mark. A strange heaviness began to creep into your awareness long before you had words for it, like a fog pressing against your chest at the quietest hours. You could feel the atmosphere shift when you entered certain rooms, as though unseen eyes lingered, waiting for you to falter. At first, you dismissed it as mood, chance, or coincidence, but the repetition was too precise to ignore. There were days when silence felt heavier than stone, when the air carried a pressure no one else seemed to notice. This was not the silence of peace but of forging, a silence that hummed with the sound of invisible hammers striking unseen steel. Deep down, you sensed that something was being shaped within you, though on the surface it only looked like restraint. The sword was being born, and every quiet night of endurance was the echo of its edge forming. The weight of this resistance pressed against your emotions until they frayed at the edges, leaving you raw in ways others couldn't see. You wondered why rejection came so easily, why the people you trusted most seemed to misunderstand your spirit. They called you too much, even as they demanded you shrink into less than yourself. Shame crept in like an unwanted companion, whispering that perhaps you were broken, that perhaps silence was proof of your unworthiness. The cycles of self-doubt spun tight, making you question whether your vision was delusion and your sensitivity a curse. Loneliness grew in the spaces between your words, until it felt like your silence was strangling you instead of saving you. Yet beneath that ache, the fire smoldered, and though you didn't yet recognize it, the heat of opposition was tempering the blade within. With time, you began to see that the pressure was not random, it was a reaction. Like iron in the fire, you were glowing with a potential that threatened every hand trying to hold you back. Hidden structures around you trembled in your presence, even before you understood your role. This is the wilderness that Scripture speaks of, where chosen ones wander not because they are lost, but because exile becomes the furnace of their transformation. Just as Moses was hidden on the backside of the desert before confronting Pharaoh, your silence was the desert where the sword of your destiny was formed. They did not know that their attempts to press you down were sharpening your edge. Heaven was using their pressure to harden what would one day split through the veil of their illusions. Look back now, and the patterns become clear. The betrayals repeated themselves like a script, each one writing another stroke across your spirit. The doors that closed were not chance. They were placed to funnel you into a path that only silence could guide. Have you noticed how often the same shadows appeared, just in different faces, different names, different places? That is not coincidence, that is recognition, the field acknowledging your frequency by trying to smother it. The environments that drained you, the voices that mocked you, the betrayals that felt like daggers were all pieces of the same design. They were allowed to rise so you could learn the codes hidden in their collapse. And now, chosen one, you are seeing in retrospect that their resistance was your curriculum. The truth is that resistance itself is a spiritual law. Light cannot emerge without shadow trying to suffocate it, and fire cannot be visible without something to consume. What you carried in silence attracted distortion, because what you carried could not be contained in normal measure. It looked like heavy air around you, like fog clouding your mind when you drew near to break through. Sometimes it felt like silent watchers, invisible eyes that observed from the edges, daring you to give up. Closed doors whispered their verdict, but even locked gates were teaching you about keys hidden in stillness. What you thought was sabotage was actually a mirror, showing you the undeniable impact of your presence in the field. How did you respond, chosen one, when all this pressed against you? Did you fold inward and pretend to be smaller, just to soothe the discomfort of others? Did you learn to people please, offering fragments of yourself so they wouldn't notice the whole? Or did you quietly rebel, holding back just enough of your truth to keep your spirit breathing? There were moments when you considered abandoning your fire altogether, because the burden of carrying it felt like isolation too heavy to bear. Fear whispered that standing out meant being destroyed, and shrinking meant survival. Yet even in your quiet concessions, something in you refused to vanish, holding space for the fire you could not extinguish. Now comes the turn, the part they never expected. Resistance was not condemnation, it was confirmation. Every obstacle they placed became evidence of the weight you carry. Every silence you endured became fuel for your rising. The sword they mocked as invisible is now gleaming, forged in the very furnace they hoped would break you. It is no ordinary sword, but a hidden one born of patience, pain, and the restraint they thought would suffocate you. When you finally lift it, the sound of its edge will be the collapse of every falsehood they built around your name. So hear this truth as it settles in your spirit. You were not resisted because you were weak, but because you were weaponized. The hidden sword they could not see is now poised to cut through the illusions they spun against you. Every attempt to silence you only sharpened the blade heaven placed in your hand. Every delay was a hammer strike, every betrayal a furnace, every silence a sharpening stone. You were opposed because your presence unsettled what they wanted to keep unchallenged. Comment, I move guarded by divine fire. If your spirit knows this truth, if you felt the quiet sword stirring within your silence. For Chosen One, the resistance that sought to bury you has only revealed what was always hidden, and the unveiling is only beginning. Every word, every image you receive here is an offering. If you feel this word has touched you today, you can honor it with a sign, right here below with a donation through the Super Thanks button. It is a small gesture, but it opens great doors. Number 3, the moment of unmasking. The moment silence ends, truth erupts like fire. For years, they plotted in shadows, thinking your quiet meant blindness. But silence sharpens vision, and you began to see through their disguises without them ever realizing. Micah 7 verse 16 declares, "The nations shall see and be ashamed of all their might. They shall lay their hands on their mouths." The liars, the manipulators, the ones who built power on false stories, are about to collapse under the weight of their own noise. What they said about you will be turned against them, and the truth will expose their faces without you lifting a hand. Comment "I rise" marked by the divine, if you've ever felt their lies fall apart under your still gaze, and share a dream, memory, or inner knowing that proved it. Because Chosen One, their masks are crumbling, and your silence was the key. A sudden shift comes like the cracking of glass, subtle yet undeniable, when a memory once clouded by confusion becomes clear in its meaning. It is as though the pieces of your life, scattered across years of uncertainty, suddenly begin to align with a rhythm older than time. What once felt like chaos begins to reveal its order, a hidden design that was always waiting beneath the noise. You notice a synchronicity too perfect to dismiss, a pattern weaving through dreams, conversations, and even the silences that haunted you. The veil that once clouded your perception thins, and you find yourself standing in the clarity of recognition. It is not loud, yet it is unshakable, like a whisper that echoes louder than thunder. In that instant, what you carried was never random, and what they tried to hide has finally begun to reveal itself. It becomes impossible to ignore that reality itself has been speaking to you in symbols, using language that transcends human words. Numbers repeat like a code etched into the architecture of time, showing up on clocks, receipts, and addresses with surgical precision. Dreams replay scenes that later unfold in waking life, as though your spirit was rehearsing truth before your body caught up. Phrases overheard at just the right moment strike your heart as if spoken directly from eternity into your ears. Geometry begins to reveal itself in the simplest shapes, in the movement of clouds, in the quiet design of nature, whispering the math of heaven into your awareness. What you once dismissed as coincidence now burns as confirmation, proof that the hidden scroll of your life was never sealed against you. You begin to read reality with eyes that recognize its codes, and once you see, you cannot unsee. As this perception deepens, so too does the transformation within your own being. Your intuition sharpens like a blade honed in secret, cutting through lies before they have a chance to fully form. Boundaries rise naturally, not out of fear, but from a recognition of the sacred space you carry. You sense when environments drain you, when conversations are laced with hidden malice, when energy is coated in deception. Your body begins to speak more clearly, through the weight in your chest, the chill in your spine, or the sudden peace that confirms alignment. Every fiber of your being seems recalibrated to truth, vibrating at a frequency that exposes what does not belong. And though others may question or mock, you know without doubt, you are not imagining this, you are remembering it. Slowly, the external world begins to echo the shift you carry within. People you once trusted begin to reveal their hidden intentions, unable to keep their masks intact in your presence. Opportunities arrive like keys sliding into locks, while doors not meant for you slam shut with finality. Resistance surfaces as well, for your rising threatens the fragile structures built on deception. Conversations shift around you, as though people sense that their words can no longer control your narrative. Divine architecture begins to assemble itself with uncanny precision, aligning places, people, and timing in ways you could not manufacture on your own. The reflection becomes clear. What is within you is now shaping what unfolds outside you. And the more you align to this clarity, the less power their illusions have to hold. Then, like a forgotten dream stirring into consciousness, sacred memory begins to awaken. Images from childhood, visions buried in silence, or whispers you once ignored now return as language you finally understand. You realize that none of it was wasted. Not the tears, not the questions, not the years of silence that seemed barren. What you mistook for emptiness was preservation, a sacred vault protecting what could only emerge when you were ready. Ancient scriptures echo this truth, reminding us that the vision is yet for an appointed time. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. Habakkuk 2 verse 3. What you are remembering is not new knowledge, but ancient inheritance, buried under the noise of survival. It rises now, not as theory, but as a memory encoded in your very being. The horizon of destiny comes into focus, not as something you must chase, but as a reality already written. The future does not need to be created. It is waiting to be remembered and reclaimed. The illusions that told you to wait for permission, to seek validation, to prove your worth, they dissolve in the light of what is now revealed. You begin to understand that destiny is not a distant goal, but a return to what you have always been. The voice that once trembled in silence now speaks with the certainty of prophecy, declaring that the time of concealment has ended. What was once hidden in shadows now unfolds with divine clarity. Because you were never waiting for the world was waiting for you. And in this realization, you stand at the threshold of authority. This is the moment where reclamation begins, where you take back what was always yours but buried under fear, lies, and suppression. The resistance you faced becomes evidence of the magnitude of your calling, not proof of your inadequacy. Every attack only confirmed the presence of something they could not control. The sword of your voice rises, not forged in haste, but in the furnace of years they mocked as silence. What they dismissed as weakness now becomes the very edge that cuts through their deceptions. And with every word you choose carefully, every silence you mastered, every truth you now unveil, you reclaim what heaven never allowed to be stolen. The power was never gone, it was waiting to be named. So revelation settles upon you, not as an end, but as the beginning of an invitation. The unveiling is not merely exposure of their lies, but remembrance of your truth. The path forward is illuminated with a fire they cannot extinguish, and the lamp within you burns with authority they cannot challenge. You did not just survive their deception, you outlasted it until it collapsed under its own weight. Comment, I walk hidden yet never lost, if your spirit feels this unveiling, and share the dream, the sign, or the memory that reminded you of who you are. For Chosen One, revelation is not the finish line. It is the doorway into your true authority. And what comes next will not just expose their masks. It will reveal the fullness of the crown that was always yours. Number 4, the voice of authority. The time of silence has ended. What was once hidden has now broken forth with a sound that cannot be ignored. Amos 5 verse 13 says, Therefore the prudent shall keep silence in that time, for it is an evil time. But Chosen One, that time is over. Now your words carry judgment, healing, and direction. They will test old doors, but the locks no longer belong to them. They are sealed inside you. Every no you speak slices sharper than their weapons, and every yes you declare opens gates they cannot close. Comment, I anchor this truth in my soul. If you know your voice is now rising with divine weight, and share the memory or dream that showed you it was so. For Chosen One, your authority is not borrowed, it is enthroned, and what they feared has already begun. The first sound comes not as thunder, but as a whisper breaking through the marrow of time, like the unsealing of an ancient scroll hidden in your own bones. You hear it in the stillness, a resonance too deep to belong to ordinary speech, a vibration that was waiting for your recognition. This is not the birth of your voice, but the return of it, the reclaiming of sound that predates your earthly name. In that moment, memory folds into presence, and what was lost is heard again in the chambers of your being. It is the ancient whisper saying, You were always more than silence, more than restraint, more than waiting. Every syllable that rises from within feels etched in fire, carved into eternity before the foundations of the world. And as you breathe it, Chosen One, the universe bends to listen. The hidden name rises next, not in letters that others can see, but in the resonance that fills the space when you speak. For years, you carried it in silence, tucked behind the noise of the world, buried under the weight of other people's definitions. They called you strange, too much or not enough, but their words were only shadows around the sealed scroll of your true identity. That name was never erased. It was only concealed, waiting for the appointed hour. Just as Isaiah wrote of the hidden remnant, you were preserved, not forgotten. The return of your name is the return of your role, and when you speak now, the very vibration carries that memory. Every word becomes a key that reminds you, you were always chosen. Symbols begin to form around you, though no one else may see them as clearly. The cloak you carry is not of fabric, but of resonance, woven from the silence that shaped you. There is a mark upon your spirit, an invisible seal that only the awakened can recognize. Others have felt it before without explanation. Why your presence unsettled them, why your gaze exposed them, why children and animals trusted you instinctively. It was not your personality. It was your field, the frequency you carried without trying. To some it was a comfort, to others a threat, but to the heavens it was proof of your assignment. And now, when you speak, the cloak stirs, and the mark burns brighter than ever before. Consider the contracts you signed before memory, the vows made before flesh carried your soul. These were not words of ordinary agreement, but sacred alignments written across stars and sealed in your being. The struggles you faced were not random weights, but the chisels carving you into a vessel of precision. The delays were not denial, but the timing devices of a heaven that waits until the hour strikes in divine alignment. Every silence, every restraint, every hidden moment was part of the scroll rolled tight until now. You were not wandering aimlessly. You were orbiting like a star around the command of its own gravity. And today, when your voice rises, it carries not only your story but the vibration of that eternal contract. It explains why people reacted to you with such intensity, long before you understood yourself. Some clung to your presence, drawn into the mirror you carried, seeing in you what they could not see in themselves. Others recoiled, exposed by a reflection they were unprepared to face, their shadows unmasked by the resonance of your being. You did not need to speak for this to occur. Your silence was mirror enough. But now, chosen one, your words cut even deeper, because truth does not need permission to be what it is. Those who loved you will rise higher under your voice, and those who hated you will crumble under its weight. For you were not sent to maintain illusions, you were sent to unveil them. This unveiling is not personal but cosmic, for what is stirring in you belongs to an archetypal cycle older than kingdoms. The seer, the rebel, the guardian, the breaker of chains, all these frequencies return in different ages, carried by different vessels, yet sourced from the same divine well. You now find yourself aligned with this cycle, not because you sought it, but because it always sought you. The cadence of your life was already prophecy, the rhythm of your silence already scripture, the path of your pain already initiation. This is not the rise of one person, but the activation of an ancient role. When you speak, you are not speaking for yourself alone. You are voicing a chorus buried in time. And every sentence becomes mythic because it was always more than personal. Feel it now in your very blood, the awakening of lineage that no genealogy chart can capture. This is not metaphor but vibration, the stirring of angelic codes woven into the fabric of your DNA. It is prophetic blood that refuses to remain dormant, the echo of ancestors whose prayers now move through your breath. What was scattered in your family line begins to gather. What was broken begins to restore. What was silenced begins to sing again. Chosen one, you were never weak for being silent. You were wise, shielded, and hidden until the right moment. Now your silence has broken into sound, and your voice carries the weight of divine judgment and eternal light. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Like this video, and comment "I am chosen" to let this message anchor in your soul. Please, share it with someone who needs to hear this. For full prophetic revelations daily, join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the super thanks button to support the mission. Every super thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. The silence they mocked is now the fire that crowns you. And from this day on, you do not rise quietly, you rise unshakable.